Welcome to another episode of Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. I'm your host, Megan, and my amazing co host is,
Hi, I'm Amanda.
yeah, maybe feeling a little less than amazing, but we'll get to that, but still amazing at the core, still amazing. Yeah. So we're
Yeah.
good. Here's the deal. If you've been bopping around the homeschool world thinking, do I even fit in here? Some of the posts that I'm seeing have me scratching my head and thinking maybe this is not a space that I should have entered into. If you've had those thoughts, you'll probably fit in perfectly here with us.
Well, yeah, we have been homeschooling for a long time between the two of us and individually at this point, honestly. And we are probably traveling in those same circles that have you scratching your head and questioning your life choices. We have been at it long enough to know that sometimes you just need to exit those conversations stage left with like a peace out, like, I'm good. No need to announce your departure and return to our people because secular, progressive, inclusive homeschoolers, they do exist and in larger numbers than you probably realize.
Well, yeah, I think in large part that's because the long denim skirt homeschool population dominated the homeschool community for so long. And for people who really spend a lot of time online talking about being submissive wives, they're very loud. They're a very loud group of submissive wives, right? So it's easy to feel like that messaging speaks for all homeschoolers if you're new, but it doesn't. You're good. Trust us.
Yeah. And here we are being really loud and really unfiltered to tell you that it is absolutely not how the entire homeschool community actually rolls.
Exactly. It's just not false advertising because we never claim to be submissive. I think each of our husbands would be like, "Oh shit, yeah, no." Right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, no. Both of our mother-in-laws would be like, "We would have signed up for that. That would have
yeah.
been that would have been preferable." Not what they got.
Yeah. But speaking of unfiltered, yeah, as our name implies, we are unfiltered. We are also moms, meaning me and Amanda. But just because that's us doesn't mean you have to be moms to hang here. However, you exist in the world, whatever your family makeup might be, you are welcome here. So settle in and relax because we are like finding a needle in a haystack in the homeschool community.
Yeah, it really is funny how for so many years people homeschooled to shelter their kids from the evils of the secular world. And now we have
Mm.
this huge, like more than 1 million in the US alone, subset of homeschoolers who are homeschooling to avoid Bibles and the 10 Commandments in public school classrooms, or they don't want their kids being taught a version of history where slavery is not allowed to be mentioned, right? Or it's described as good job skill training or black migration. I mean, come the fuck on. Okay, but anyway, I will try to not get on that particular soapbox today. We really have come full circle, haven't we?
Yes, we have. And I'm still wondering how the hell we got here, but here we are. Here we are. So, if your algorithm is filled with people like Ms. Rachel and the non toxic masculinity guy and the green flag guy and Jen Hamilton rocking her new independent woman era and Monty Mater, you're in the right place. You're good here.
Okay.
The algorithm has created a match made in homeschooling secular heaven between us. So, welcome and give us a follow because you won't find many other spaces like this in the homeschool world for advice and resources that you can trust as a secular progressive homeschooler.
Yeah, true story. The other nice thing about this space is that one of our non negotiables, in addition to human rights, because obviously that's a big non negotiable for us, but beyond that, another non negotiable is that we show up as our real selves. Okay, that could mean a messy bun and hair that's days past when it should have been washed. That's usually me. My hair was recently washed because I just got off a flight and I always wash it after flying, but that's a whole other story. It could mean dark circles under the eyes. Heck, once it was even red eyes from a cry session that happened right before we hit record. Look, we just roll with it. This is reality. We don't do the phony influencer thing where we show you this curated BS about homeschooling that looks truly nothing like actual homeschooling.
Yeah, no, we don't do that thing. And for the record, the red eyeballs and crying was totally me. I think maybe more than once actually. But yeah, so that's that. We love homeschooling. We love it. We love doing life with our respective kids. We don't regret the choice that we made to homeschool. We don't show up and bitch nonstop about homeschooling and these darn kids and blah, blah, blah. But if we have a rough day, week, or as it seems to happen, a season, right? Sometimes it would be really nice if it was just a day, but you end up in these seasons where you're like, when will this end?
Yeah.
We'll tell you about it. That way, when you have the same experience and you're thinking it's just you and you've made a horrible mistake by deciding to homeschool, you'll be like, no, they have these times too. It's going to be okay. This season will pass.
That's exactly it. And so, one of the ways of doing that is we try to start off each episode with a weekly recap. We'll tell you the good, the bad, the ugly. And this week, I think it's pretty safe to say that we both have some fun recaps for you, but also some ugly. So, I'm looking forward to hearing everything that's going on. But first, we will give you a little sneak peek into our topic for today's episode. We are going to be talking about how to fill learning gaps. We are recording this episode at what is often considered the start of the new school year for many people. So, if you're new to homeschooling or you're coming off summer break and you might be identifying gaps and entering into a bit of a panic spiral, I realize that this is like when my husband tells me to calm down, and I have never once ever calmed down when he says that. But we do encourage you to try to press the panic pause button because we've got some advice and support that should help you out in this scenario.
Absolutely. And it might not necessarily be the beginning of the school year or coming off a break for you. You might have just noticed during a lesson or through conversation with your kiddo that your kiddo somehow has no idea what verbs are. And you're like, how could I have fucked this up so badly? I've been there, done that. But don't stress. Stay tuned. We've got you. We've got you. But first, as Amanda said, weekly update. Amanda is fresh off her trip to Peru. So I'm excited to hear your scoop, Amanda. Last time we recorded a little bit early, so it's been a little bit more than our usual gap between episodes. So I'm excited to check in and see what's what. Amanda was mostly offline for her trip, so it'll be a recap for me, the same as it is for you at the same time. So, what's life been throwing your way between Peru and back again?
Yeah, well, it is interesting because as business partners, we talk all the time, but this particular trip was really nonstop. So you and I have not been in touch hardly at all for a
Mm-mm.
couple of weeks at this point. It's a little bizarre. But yeah, so my recap. I do talk sometimes on the show about being disabled with chronic illness. I have loads, truly loads of diagnoses, and I'm not going to go into all of that. I do, in fact, have medical privacy, but I was fairly anxious about how this trip to Peru was going to go with my kiddo. He's 12 and a half now, and he's in that weird point in life where I still help him and take care of him, and I'm still the adult in this scenario, but I can rely on him for help if needed.
Hmm.
So I did feel a little bit better, but also we booked this package deal that was a crazy deal. It was so affordable, but also it meant I didn't really have much control over the
Hmm.
itinerary. And also, they had no idea how to accommodate my disabilities, even though I emailed them and they assured me that everything was going to be fine. So, things like one hotel had no elevator at all and it was 6 stories high. So, at the last minute, I was booking a separate hotel and coordinating to make sure that everything was going to work out. Then there was another hotel that had an elevator. They assured me it had an elevator, and it did, but only after you climbed the first full flight of stairs. Then
Mm.
you got to your elevator. And then they booked the tour for us for Machu Picchu, which is amazing because there's all of these tickets and things that go into that. So if you can outsource it, I highly recommend it. It made it very easy from that regard. But they booked the one where you have to climb all the way to the top and you look down at the famous view. I traveled with 3 different inhalers, and I had a really good guide who was really willing to stop as many times as we needed, and At one point, the kiddo was definitely helping push me up some of the steps because my legs were just shaking so badly and my dysautonomia was going crazy. And I was like, oh boy, I traveled with my cane. It all worked out. We made it to the top, which I'll be honest, I absolutely did not expect to happen. I did not expect to get that view. I never thought that I would be able to experience that. So, big
Mm.
picture, Peru was really good, right? We did a great tour in Lima and another great one in Cusco. And yeah, we got to do Machu Picchu. I got to have that experience that I had given up on a long time ago because of my health. So, that was really moving for me. I will say the flip side of that is, unfortunately, yesterday I spent the entire day in bed so sick. I'm really struggling to eat or drink anything, which is problematic because I've also got a fever. So I really need the fluids. The fever might be illness related, or it might be a gallbladder infection because I'm pretty sure I'm having a gallbladder attack, or it could just be my body freaking out. When things aren't going normal, one of my pain responses is to spike a fever. So that's not
Mhm.
necessarily uncommon for me. So, yeah, we're going to try to record because life does not slow down. We took a bunch of time off for me to go on this Peru trip, and people really like those Tuesday episodes. We've yet to actually miss one. Every once in a while, we'll do a re release. But yeah, so I'm here. I I don't I might look better than I feel. I might not. I
Look
don't know.
fantastic. Yeah. I mean, listen,
I'm
I,
gonna call
I
liar liar pants on fire for that one, but
no,
okay.
you do. You look great. Yeah, no, you look fantastic.
It seems
Yeah,
lighter.
if I'm here finishing the episode with a puppet doing the Amanda part, you'll know that Amanda's back in bed and I'll finish and we'll get an episode out. It'll be good. I'll make the puppet sound like you. I'll be like, curriculum is amazing. Yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah. Oh man. So with all of that, I did know that I needed to take it easy when we got back, but also life is still life. And so I have mentioned before that we're taking it really easy with a slow start to the school year for us because we're not with a charter school this year. And while that is true, we are doing online classes and we're trying a couple of new vendors this year. And of course, this week is the week that they all have their orientation and their live
Mhm.
meetings and their come meet this and figure all of these things out. And so we're trying to get those done. I'm trying to manage that and make sure I understand my part in that and make sure that the kiddo is ready to take on his part in that. And I, yeah, it's more than a bad day. I don't think it's going to be a bad season, but it's definitely more than a bad day. So there's that. And anyway,
Mhm.
there you go.
Yeah.
It'll get done. How about you? Your kids, the last time we talked, I knew the plan was for them to be all over the place. I'm
Yeah.
sure that's kept you quite busy.
Yeah, for sure. They've been all over the place. Aiden left summer camp yesterday, actually, and he's in Portland with a friend now for a couple of weeks until he goes to the other summer camp, which is the same camp, but just a different session, different location. I didn't hear from him the whole time he was at camp. He completely disconnects from his phone. There's basically no signal, and that's totally fine. But it was nice to hear from him a little bit yesterday. I only talked to him for 30 seconds. He's my pulling teeth to get sentences out of kids. So I don't expect a huge debrief on camp, but it was still nice to get a little proof of life. So that was good. And then Liam came back from camp, which I've been talking about the fact that he went to summer camp at Oxford for math and physics. And really, I didn't even care about the math and physics. I was like, just go make some friends, have an independent experience. And he came home, and the debrief was freaking hilarious. Let me tell you, all this stuff that quote unquote like went wrong.
Mm,
And I was like, why didn't you call? You had cell phone service. It was not like Aiden where you're completely disconnected. Like, we could talk. And he's like, yeah, but then you panic and you're like, I'll be on the next flight. So he's like, so I handled it. But some of the handled it was clever. So, for example, one of the best was before he left, I went and got him all the little travel size toiletries and I had gotten him a new razor. And I guess he left it in a puddle or something. It wasn't in a place where it could dry after he used it for the first time. So it got rusty. And he had plenty of spending money. He had cash with him, but then he also has access to Google Pay where he can use one of our credit cards. So it's not
mhm.
like he had no money. So his razor got rusty, his brand new razor. And he's like, so I just shaved really gently and spread the shaving out a little bit. He's like, because I was really confident that my tetanus shot was up to date and that I'd be okay. And I was like, you had all this money. I'm like, he came home with Legos and all this other stuff. I'm like, you had all this at no point where you're like, I'll just buy a fresh razor.
Like the grown up who doesn't want to buy new sheets. You know, you need new sheets. You know, you need new towels. But of all the things you could spend your own money on, do you really want to
It's not
spend
his
on that?
money. Please, here's my credit card and his Google Pay. Go treat yourself to a razor because death by tetanus is really unpleasant. It's a really ugly disease to die from. He has the vaccine, don't get me wrong, but holy crap.
We had this conversation in Peru because we had the opportunity multiple times to feed alpaca and llamas. And we would always joke about, oh, do you think they have rabies? Probably not. And you're up to date on all your vaccinations. So it's probably fine.
He'll be fine.
It'll
Yeah.
be fine.
Oh my gosh. And then I've talked on the podcast many, many times about the fact that this is my kiddo who doesn't really eat. He has an orphan diagnosis. He only eats like 5 foods. And he's spent plenty of time in England, so he's very familiar with the things that he eats from Sainsbury, and he has certain foods at certain stores that are safe foods for him, even in England. And I had said to him before he left, I can do grocery delivery, I can Uber Eats, whatever you need. If you need food, let me know. So he'd been there for 2 weeks. And part of the debrief is like, I haven't had lunch or dinner since I left. And I was like, come again? So he goes, the lunches and dinners were gross. And again, I give him this wide eyed look and he's like, I handled it. He's like, I knew if I told you, you'd panic. And I'm like, I wouldn't have panicked. I'd have sent you groceries, shelf stable groceries. So he's like, I handled it. He goes, I'd have a huge breakfast, which does work for him because he takes a stimulant medication for his ADHD. So he isn't a big daytime eater anyway, because when his pills wear off at the end of the day, he's hungry. So he's not typically a big lunch eater anyway. But he goes, I would fill my bag with apples every morning at breakfast. And then I just ate apples the entire rest of the day while I was hungry. And then the next day I would have a big breakfast again. And I was like, okay.
Well, look,
So
if an apple a day keeps the doctor away, five
like
a day
10. Yeah. Yeah.
keeps the Liam alive. So,
Exactly. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. So that was that. And Astrid's been to the US and back since we last talked to each other. She went to a weaving conference that she was presenting at, and she brought back a whole bunch of stuff. I was so excited though about my grilled cheese sandwich, if you'll recall. I had Instacarted to her some Kraft singles and some Hebrew National hot dogs. That was all I wanted from the US. And I sent her with a little cooler bag so she could bring it back in the little cooler bag. But again, I was like, Kraft singles and Hebrew National hot dogs aren't food. So I doubt they'd go bad. It's plastic cheese. It'll be fine, even if it gets a little warm. And then I'll just stick it in the fridge when she gets here. And she gets to the airport and her suitcase was wildly overweight. And guess what got left behind? Somebody at the airport at the check-in counter is eating my grilled cheese sandwich. So, but I will survive. So yeah, so the kids are all good. They're just busy living their summertime lives. If you don't have older teenagers yet, it's a glimpse into the future. They come, they go, they're here, they're there. They make interesting choices while finding their footing with independence. It's a ride, let me tell you. Yeah. But other than that, just busy. I've actually been working on some books for a while now, independent of me and Amanda, but they're still homeschool related books. So I'll share more on that another time, but they're coming. They're a solid work in progress. And then I have a cohort starting next month for it's called an unschooling cohort, but the goal is not for every single person to leave and to become an unschooler. And we're not going to have some big ceremonial lighting of the curriculum bonfire situation going on. It's really just a group of people who are looking to detach a little bit from the shoulds of education. I should be doing this or I have to be doing that. And just trying to trust, leaning into trusting their kiddos and trusting the process a little bit more. But by no stretch of the imagination do you need to be an unschooler to join, or are you required to be an unschooler by the time the year is over because it's a 12-month cohort. So yeah, I finished the September module today and I just have a few more finishing touches to put on the presentation for the September meeting. So I'm excited. It's going to be really, really good. But yeah,
Nice.
I've been hooked on the Lindsay Clancy trial. There was actually a Lindsay Clancy moment of silence. I can't really say it was a rally or anything because it was just a moment of silence type thing today, even here in Portugal. That's how worldwide the impact of this has been. And so I went to that and it was just a beautiful thing to stand there and acknowledge obviously the loss of life of her children, but then the horrendous treatment of women in the medical system and women's health. And so yeah, so I've been following that. And yeah, I had to get up early today to go to the Social Security office with Liam. And so here's Amanda, like dying on the floor, but I'm like, I feel really out of sorts because I had to get up early today. All right.
Right.
So while Amanda's good, before she has another keel over in pain situation, we should start talking about knowledge gaps. Let's
Yeah.
strike while the iron is hot here. So let's get into it. So I have had knowledge gap spirals before, which might surprise some people since I'm the loosey goosey one of us. It's been a long time, but yeah, in most instances, when it's happened with my own children, it's been related to ADHD memory issues. And this is not a random example. One of my kids was like, "Do I know the alphabet?" And I was like, "Oh my God." So, been there, done that, right? I have one kid who, again, older teenagers, does not know the months in order and will be like, "When is November?" Zero concept of time. When we talk about ADHD time blindness, no concept of time whatsoever. And so you will have these moments where you're like, how am I sending these children off? But it's not like we haven't talked about the months a million times over. It's just not going to stick. That's the wiring that's going on there. So, yeah. And I am a person who is also very prone to spiraling, as Liam's camp debrief will tell you, where he was like, I knew you'd get on a plane, so I figured I would just handle it. Like, okay. So it doesn't take long for me to reach for a brown paper bag to breathe into and to be like, oh my God, this is horrible. But how about you, Amanda? Have you exposed a knowledge gap? I mean, obviously you have, everyone has, right? But do you spiral?
I mean, I'm not really a panic spiral person, as evidenced by the fact that my mom this morning was like, "Have you gone to see a doctor yet? I really think you should actually see a doctor." And I was like, "I know, but I was busy rolling around in bed, writhing in pain." But we've talked about this before. We did the CAT test a long time ago. And from it, I realized that my kid didn't have a very solid understanding of punctuation, even though he was reading constantly. And yeah, I definitely hadn't covered it. So it made sense that he got all of the punctuation questions wrong. Or tying shoes. That's one of those things. Our entire family uses those elastic shoelaces
Hmm.
because we slip our shoes on and off at the door, Asian style. My husband is Asian, and so that's how we do it. So even though I have taught my kiddo how to tie bows and shoelaces multiple times over the years, never seems to stick. But
Hmm.
I'm also just kind of like, I mean, how important is it? If at some point it becomes important, we'll learn it again. It'll be fine. We'll learn it again.
Yeah, because everybody is going to have knowledge gaps and everybody's going to have to relearn something or pick it up in the moments. That's life. Yeah. Depends on how strong the motivating factors are. Yeah, absolutely. So, today we will be discussing possible ways that you might be able to reframe your thoughts around learning gaps and then offer some action plans on how to move forward.
Well, yeah. And I will say, as the calmer one between us, a knowledge gap isn't a cause to breathe into a brown paper bag. It is not an emergency. And you don't have to formulate a plan in a flash where you frantically drag this child to a grade level finish line to fill the gap and ease your worry. It's just not. And I say this as the aggressive academic homeschooler between us. Even from my perspective, that is not the goal. Filling the gap is the goal. Rushing to fill the gap is not the goal.
I feel like you're trying to deny me of a perfectly good panic attack. And
I would
uh,
never. I would actually. I try to talk you down from panic attacks fairly regularly.
yeah, I'll get there for far less than a knowledge gap. This is this is not even the lowest rung on the ladder that I will panic attack over, but I will join you today in exploring a more strategic approach. Fine, we'll do it your way.
Yeah. Well, again, I know telling a person mid panic spiral just to not worry or to calm down is about as helpful as having a fork in a soup eating contest. But today we'll talk about calmly assessing the situation, weighing what the needs are, and then how to address it in a way that protects confidence while also building the skills.
Mm-hmm.
So, the first thing that I'd suggest is to figure out whether you're looking at a real gap. Now, what do I mean by that? Your kiddo is behind compared to what? Are they behind compared to grade level standards, a curriculum scope and sequence, their peers, what the school told you they should know? And look, all of those are fine to an extent. Benchmarks can be helpful. It's dumb for me to sit here and be like, don't ever pay any attention to benchmarks. We all use benchmarks for all kinds of things in life, but they can also absolutely be unhelpful. I wish there was an easy, this is when and what to worry about guide sheet or something, but really there isn't. So hopefully you've done a lot of unpacking with deschooling. And that means that noticing a knowledge gap is more about realizing your kiddo can't do something you thought they could, oftentimes passively, something you just assumed. Like Megan assumed her kid knew the alphabet. I assumed I taught my kiddo to tie his shoes with one of those cute little Melissa and Doug things when he was like 4. So surely he knows how to tie his shoes. You never really thought about it. It's just an underlying assumption. And then you realize, like, oh, we should have explicitly done that. Let's go back and explicitly do that.
Hmm. But even still, like you said, if you taught your kiddo how to tie shoes when they're 4, if you're not utilizing a skill, it's like anything else. You're going to forget how to do something and you have to go back and revisit the concept to bring it to the forefront of your brain again. And even if you're a homeschooler who's working off state standards, which so not me, but yeah, if it's a full I am married to the state standard situation or I am loosely peaking at the state standard situation, it's important to remember that not all state standards are age or developmentally correct. Peter Gray referred to the kindergarten system in America in its current form as cruelty. Not my word, his word, but I will get behind the statement. So if your panic spiral is because your kindergartner doesn't like writing, we need to have a really serious conversation about what is age and developmentally appropriate for that kiddo. If you're panicked that your 10-year-old doesn't know long division, Eh, okay, there's plenty of time. That's okay. They're 10. If you're worried that they're still struggling with basic addition, even though you've covered it more times than you care to recall, those are two really different scenarios because basic addition is something that you've covered a whole bunch of times and you've been covering it for a few years now. Okay, maybe there's something to dig into here. But if they don't know something that's an advanced skill yet, that's beyond what's typically age appropriate, okay, give it some time. Circle back to it. It'll be fine.
Well, yeah, that's a great point. It's important to understand, to know that there's this idea, this line in the homeschool world that kids cannot be behind. No kid can be behind. We did a whole episode on this, so you feel free to go back and listen to it. But yeah, actually, they can 100% be behind. And sometimes that requires assessment and intervention, professional help. So if you're not sure what's going on, are they really struggling to grasp something or do they just need more time? Definitely go give that episode a listen. But beyond that, whatever your kiddo's present knowledge gap might be, I'd suggest looking at the prerequisite skills. So, what do I mean by that? The thing they're struggling with may not actually be the thing they need help with. Trouble with fractions might actually be weak multiplication facts. Trouble with writing paragraphs might actually be difficulty generating or organizing ideas. Maybe you need to look at different types of organizers, graphic organizers, brain mapping, those kinds of things so that they can write paragraphs more effectively. Poor reading comprehension might actually be weak decoding or fluency skills.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. So often the symptoms, quote unquote, on the surface are not the root cause of whatever the issue might be. So it really does require analysis and probing to tease out exactly what's going on. And in the beginning, a parent can likely do those early steps of teasing and analyzing, or perhaps you can consult with somebody to walk you through that process. But if the gap remains or even widens, it's time to loop in a professional and see what's going on. Which, speaking of, or rather hinting at neurodivergence, also has me thinking that before we go any further, we really need to factor that into this conversation about knowledge gaps. I personally, like I said before, don't give a lick about state standards. That's never been my jam. I don't look at them. I don't even look at them out of interest or for a loose reference. Not at all. No interest. Don't care what they're doing. But imagine that you are a person who's looking at them and maybe even trying to align to them to some degree. It's important to remember that those standards are built for the kids who are in the middle of the bell curve. That's how the entire school system is built for the most part. That's who it serves, are the kids that are in the middle of the bell curve. It works for those, and it works for a ton of those kids who fall neatly into that center of the bell curve. Many of them don't have any challenges in school or minor challenges, normal everyday challenge kind of stuff, but it's not a train wreck like it has been for one of my kids, some of the people who we meet in our Patreon community or through coaching sessions that are outside of the bell curve. So, yeah, buckle up if your kid is on either side of that median of the bell curve. So, if you're looking at those state standards and identifying gaps, for me, and I'm sure this might be an area where Amanda and I differ a little bit or a lot a bit, I would suggest teasing out if it's a performance gap or a true knowledge gap. Anxiety, ADHD, dyslexia, dysgraphia, specific learning disabilities, working memory demands, processing speed, perfectionism, all of those things can make a kiddo look like they don't know something that they actually understand, but there's a disconnect there because of the wiring.
Well, yeah, and we definitely disagree or choose to approach homeschooling from very different ways. That's part of what makes this podcast work. But I don't think we disagree on the fact that when you add in any sort of different wiring, whatever that is, you have to take that into consideration when you're looking at what might be considered a knowledge gap. And again, it's all about really teasing that out. It's not easy, it takes time. But yeah, I totally agree with that. It's going to look really different. And in a traditional brick and mortar setting, a lot of times there are a few really great teachers out there that understand that, but most of the time they're not open to making sure your kid can share what they know in the way that they can communicate it. But as
Mm,
homeschoolers, we have that option. So sometimes something isn't a knowledge gap so much as it is an inability to present it the way you're expecting them to present it gap.
mm,
Those are two totally different things. Then I will say beyond that, I'd love to recommend so strongly to resist the immediate urge to catch them up. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Quick, quick, quick. Let's go, let's go. The natural response is they're 2 years behind. We need to do 2 years of math this summer. The number of times I hear that, right? We got to get them caught up so that they can start grade level this school year. Okay. More work isn't necessarily faster remediation. Okay. More work is not necessarily going to help this situation. Trying to cram years of missed instruction into a few months can create burnout, resistance, shame, damaged confidence, and honestly, just a kid who now hates the exact subject you're trying to strengthen.
hmm
So the thing is, instead, take a step back and try to ask, what are the highest leverage missing skills? You don't necessarily have to recreate every lesson they missed. Often you can identify a handful of foundational skills that unlock everything above those few skills. Think repair the foundation, not replay every year of school.
hmm I was sitting here kind of laughing when you were saying we're going to do 2 years worth of math in one summer kind of situation. Because if you were not the person in that situation and you were having a conversation with another person who was telling you that plan, you'd be sitting there going, that's the worst idea I've ever heard. But then when it's your kid and you're feeling that panic, you're like, guess what we're doing? And everybody else is sitting there going, that's the worst idea I've ever heard. But it's like, even for yourself, you would never support someone else doing that or be like, yes, you are on to something here.
You
So,
should totally do that. Rock that out. That'll be great.
yeah. But I think one of the worst things that our school system, our approach towards education in the US has given us is this adrenaline filled rush to some finish line. It's like there's one big finish line, which is being successful in life, but then there's a million little finish lines along the way. And the mentality that we've been given is that every single one of these finish lines is absolutely critical to your child's overall success. Remember the movie Speed with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock, where she has to cut the wire and they're not sure which wire or whatever? I mean, that's basically every movie with a bomb there ever was. But it's like every single finish line has that level of intensity. Like you cut the wrong wire and that's it. It's all over. And it's just, it's so not true. I'm not sitting here advocating for educational neglect where it's like, yeah, they'll be fine. They'll figure it out. It'll all be okay. Don't worry about it. If you see obvious signs of issues, don't worry about it. It'll all be okay. But I also don't think the opposite of that is every single moment and decision is do or die, because it isn't. And it's hard when you're in it to acknowledge that. Hello, I'm the one who panics. Like I feel it. I know I got you, but it's not. So in those cases too, I will say as the panicker between us, like you need people around you who don't do that thing. Do not find more of you who will just escalate and one up each other, right? Need people who are like, oh my gosh. I mean, my husband, for his many, many faults, will look at me and just be like, what the hell is wrong with you? When I kind of unload these insane ideas, and they're absolutely out of this world. They make no sense. There's no logic. And he doesn't do it in a way that's mean. We're not talking a Patrick Clancy situation here, but he looks at things so different than me that when I explain this, his legitimate reaction is like, I can't believe that's what your brain has been doing this entire time. And when I see that look on his face, it's enough now at this point after 20 years to snap me out of it and to be like, oh, I'm being ridiculous. I see it. I see it playing out on your face that this is so absurd that I need to get off of this crazy train that I'm on. So, and I don't use the word crazy lightly. I don't make fun of mental illness. It will be a crazy train that I will be on. I have an annual pass on that
Real
train.
fast
So
for it.
yeah, yeah. I am not making light of anxiety, of mental. Hello, I started the episode talking about Lindsay Clancy. I'm certainly not making light of it. I'm on the train for real. So yeah, it's there. But I'd be much more concerned throughout this whole gap filling process with protecting your kiddos' confidence and their heart and their spirit than worrying about catching them up super duper speedy. And I think that's especially true for the kids who are coming out of the school system, because a lot of people that we talk to, they're pulling their kids out of the school system because it's not working in some way, shape, or form. That's not always the case, but if we were going to make a pie chart of people that we talk to and the reasons why, it's a big slice of pie that things are not going well. And so you have to realize some of these kids are already probably more battered and bruised than you even realize when it comes to their ego and their confidence and stuff like that. So that to me is so much more important than worrying about them reading on grade level at this exact moment. Again, not advocating educational neglect, just saying like, make a prioritization list. And for me, that would not be the thing at the top. So I think in an effort to do all the things and be proactive and try so hard to support your kiddo and give them the very best of everything, there's a real risk of you accidentally getting them caught up or catching them up their whole identity. And they will feel that. They will 100% feel that. And that isn't great for anybody. I've shared before that I used to work at Outschool in the marketing department. And listen, I use Outschool. Amanda uses Outschool. I've been using Outschool. Next year, it'll be a decade that my kids have been using Outschool. I teach on Outschool. My oldest kiddo now teaches on Outschool. He teaches Pokemon classes. It is great. Okay. But it's also a marketplace. It's like Etsy. So teachers function as independent contractors. They have to pass a background check. They have to adhere to Outschool's guidelines and safety and class content standards. But as long as they do that, they can kind of run their own show on Outschool because they're independent contractors. And there are some amazing, amazing teachers on OutSchool. But part of my job when I worked at OutSchool was to respond to incoming messages through the OutSchool social media channels. So if somebody DM'd through Facebook or commented on something saying, "Oh, this class looks amazing, but do you have it for younger kids or older kids?" That was my job, was to find those people, whatever they were asking for, make suggestions, and hopefully work them into the OutSchool fold. So I would go to the class catalog. I would look for options to share with them. I'd see tutoring options in the class catalog, and I would see things that were labeled reading tutoring for struggling readers or remedial reading tutoring, stuff like that. And I get it, it's a marketplace, and teachers are using keywords that they're trying to perceive parents would be using in order to find a tutor. And so they're trying to get their class to come up higher in the search results. I get it. But that also means that every time that kid logs into class, that's the messaging that smacks them in the face. And how awful is that every single time to be like, I'm a struggling reader? Oh my gosh, that's absolutely awful. So to me, I get it from a business perspective, but that's a teacher that cares more about getting the booking and making the money than about your kiddo's psychological well being. And I get it. They have bills to pay. Teachers work super hard, but not at the expense of my kiddo's confidence. That's not someone I would ever book a class with.
Well, yeah, I'm just imagining a kid who had a couple of days or a week between sessions, and they're coming in confident and excited to share some win with their teacher. And then, like as you say, they get smacked in the face with that reminder that they're a quote unquote struggling reader. And poof, all that progress and confidence just goes up
Oh,
in smoke.
hmm
How sad. Right?
hmm
In reality, there's no reason to even be using the behind terminology with the vast majority of kids. Like, maybe there's a kid out there who finds that motivating. I can't imagine there is, but as soon as I say there isn't, someone will be like, my kid, when I was growing up. But generally speaking, I'd be saying something more like, we figured out why reading has been so hard, and we're going to work on this piece together. So when you are working on it, just be really mindful and selective with the materials you're using. It is 100% okay if your fifth grader needs first grade phonics instruction. I
hmm
talk with people in coaching all the time about ways to do that with their kids. We encourage that over powering through and hoping it all just clicks one day. But what they most likely do not need is a book with cartoon content covered in smiling first graders with a great big bubble grade 1 in ginormous letters on the cover.
Yeah, that would not be advisable. While you were talking, I was thinking that we did an episode a while ago also about the challenges associated with using one size fits all curriculum. And that's kind of what I was thinking there. This highlights that in such a huge, huge way that there's almost no kid who's working at fifth grade level completely across the board. They'll have things that they super duper excel at, and they just keep going and surging forward. And you can't even find enough resources to keep this kid satisfied in that area. And then they'll have things that are hard and they need more practice and different resources, more time, more repetition, all of that to make any headway in that particular area. So I get that a fifth grade box is easier to purchase and it gives you peace of mind that it's complete and nothing is going to fall through the cracks because it's standards aligned and somebody made sure, somebody who's a curriculum expert, if you will, made sure that every T is crossed and I is dotted. But if it doesn't fit your kid, that's not terribly helpful. So if your kiddo is rocking first grade phonics, go for it. Let them rock first grade phonics. They might also be rocking at that same exact time advanced level astronomy and chemistry because they can't get enough science. And that's totally okay too. So asynchronous development is just so, so, so common. And I'm thinking, I'm not in your coaching sessions, but you must run into this all the time in coaching sessions when you're helping parents choose curriculum and build out plans for implementing it. and all of that, right? Like, is that, I would imagine that's super common for you.
Oh, totally. So, listen, I can assure anyone who is listening, there are absolutely age respectful remediation options out there. It might
Hmm.
take a little bit more work on the parents' part, or yeah, they can come book a coaching session or whatever. We can put our heads together and streamline the process. But there are resources out there that are decodable texts with older characters and topics, that are plain worksheets that don't announce it's grade level 1 or grade 2 level work. There are manipulatives without babyish presentation. Audiobooks paired with decoding instruction so intellectual access isn't limited by reading level. There are so many options, and truly, if all else fails, I am not above removing the cover of a book or covering up grade levels or even just blaming it on myself. When my kiddo was in fourth grade, I found what is now one of my favorite resources for explicit writing instruction. And it started with first and second grade standards, and it's throughout the curriculum. But I was just like, hey, look, I found this new system that I really want to try, but it's new to both of us, and I have to be able to know how to teach it. So I was thinking it would be best for us to just start at the beginning, and we can just go through it as quick as you need or you want. But this way, I have a really solid understanding of how it works so that I can help you later on when you have questions and it's not so intuitive to you. Because
Mm.
eventually you're going to reach a point where it's not intuitive to you, but I'm not going to know how it works because I wasn't doing all of the lessons with you. So let's just start from the very beginning. We'll do it together. When you're trying out a new method or curriculum, it's smart to make sure you have a solid foundation in that specific way instead of trying to build a building from the fourth floor up. Kids are smart. You can explain that to them and they'll understand. Now, they might not necessarily like it, but they'll understand. And it's a good life skill. Sometimes you have to go back to the very beginning and dial it in. All that said, it is important for us to remember that typically speaking, a 12-year-old reading at a second grade level does not have a second grade brain. Generally speaking, we should teach the missing skill at the appropriate instructional level while also giving them access to knowledge at their intellectual level. And a lot of times, again, not always, but a lot of times, those are going to be two very different levels.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what makes it so fun.
Where's the manual? I was told
Yeah.
there'd be a how-to manual.
Yeah, and then have a couple of kids and they're all doing that thing and it's absolute chaos, but it's doable. We can do it. We've got this. Oh my gosh. Yeah, but it's so true. If you have an 11-year-old who still is working through really explicit phonics instructions to get a grasp on reading fluency, that's fine. But audiobooks are a brilliant thing. Let them listen to Percy Jackson if intellectually and curiosity wise, that's what's interesting. And even socially, if all their friends are listening to a specific book or reading a specific book, give them access to it, but in a way that meets them where they need it to. If they're super duper interested in black holes, go watch documentaries and discuss complex history and science and all of these things. It's the same with writing. They can dictate really sophisticated thoughts to you if they have those thoughts, but they're struggling with the actual handwriting or the mechanics of sentence structure. That's okay. Meet them where they are and bridge that little bit because it'll get shorter over time with continued work. It's the same with math. You can remediate multiplication while still exploring higher level mathematical concepts in accessible ways. They don't need to remain stagnant because of one or two missing skills. That isn't something that needs to shrink their entire education, their entire experience, their worldview. We talk all the time about one of the biggest benefits of homeschooling being flexibility and the ability to differentiate learning. And this is it right here. It's a beautiful thing. I will say this truly does require rolling up your sleeves and getting into the weeds with your kiddo. But that is homeschooling. That's the commitment in a lot of ways. You don't have to do everything at a Pinterest worthy level all the time, but signing them up for Mia Academy and checking the parent dashboard once a week is not going to be the same thing as rolling up your sleeves and getting into the weeds and doing these remediation steps with your kiddo in a way that gets them where A, you want them to be, and B, also protects them in the ways that we've discussed so far at the same time. So, yeah. Amanda has some tips coming up in her notes that I totally peeked ahead at. And they're all about knowing how and where to start when it comes to filling knowledge gaps as far as actual actionable steps. But before we get there, I do want to take a quick second to remind you that we are so much more than a podcast. We started this way, but now we have written books and we've created online classes to help you start homeschooling ASAP. You can literally take any of our classes in a day and be like, okay, I've gotten the quick download here. I know what's going on and I feel more in the know. As we've mentioned a few times, we offer coaching services. We publish unit studies. I'm actually a little bit tired today because I was up really late last night working on the one for next month for 9/11. We have a Patreon community with live meetings and a book club for parents to help parents grow. We're still growing too. We have homeschool swag that will leave no one wondering where you stand politically if you slap one of those stickers on your water bottle and head to co-op. So yeah, check the show notes, but also you can head to homeschoolmomsunfiltered.com for more information. We're super easy to find. And from there, you can link to all of the things. And if you have a question and you can't find something, because we do have a lot of resources and support out there, and it's a little bit maze like sometimes, send us a DM on social media. We've gotten a couple in the last week that were like, do I go book? Do I go course? What do I do? Should I join Patreon? I know I need help. I just don't know what kind of help. And if you could help me figure out the help, that would be great. And we're like, yeah, sure, no problem. We're happy to help. So we answer messages all the time. So we do not mind. Come ask questions. We're happy to help. That's what we're here for. That's literally why we have a podcast. So head to the website, send us a message. We've got you covered. But in the meantime, I'm excited to hear Amanda's brilliant ideas for remediating knowledge gaps.
Well, yeah, and I will get to those, but that's exactly it, right? We started this a couple of years ago at this point, just because we felt like there was a lack of resources, the resources that we wanted as secular progressive homeschoolers. And we work so hard now to try to build resources that we wish existed and tools that we know would have helped us when we were new homeschoolers.
Hmm.
So, you know, you get to benefit from from our muddling. You hopefully don't have to muddle through quite as much, right? It's there. We
Hmm.
built it. And if you have, honestly, if you have ideas of something that you're like, man, I wish I'd had this, or I wish I'd, let us know. We'll dig into it. We'll look at it. We'll see if it's something that we can add to our ever growing to-do list and possible, like, should we consider doing this? But yes. Okay. So actionable advice when it comes to filling gaps. Let's get into it. So step one, I think the most important first step is to find the lowest missing rung on the ladder. I kind of mentioned this earlier in the episode, but instead of starting where the curriculum says they should be and then working backwards, start by really figuring out the base skill, the last skill that they're really strong at. So with reading, you've got, is the problem actually reading comprehension? Does it go back to fluency? Does it go back to decoding? Is it phonemic awareness? Is it letter sound correspondence? If the phonemic awareness is shaky, doing more fifth grade reading comprehension worksheets isn't going to solve that problem, right? The same with writing. Can they generate ideas verbally? Okay, if they've got that, can they organize those ideas? Okay, great. Can they construct sentences? Can they actually put the sentences together? Do they need to work on expanding the sentences? Do they need to work on punctuation and capitalization? Is it a lack of spelling skills? Is it an issue with the physical activity of writing or typing comfortably? And what part of that is it? Is it that they can't do it physically? Or is it that they can't do it because there's a disconnect between what happens in their brain and what comes out of their fingers? Those are two very different things, but if you don't take the time to figure it out, you're not going to be putting the right accommodations and you're not going to be addressing it the right way. So, this idea of my kiddo can't write can actually mean completely different things that need completely different resources and to be addressed in totally different ways. The same with math. Does division fall apart because multiplication isn't automatic? Is multiplication difficult because skip counting and number sense is weak? Is the actual problem remembering procedures and vocabulary? Is it something as fundamental as the minus sign doesn't mean what the minus sign means to you and me, to your kiddo? Well, that's an easy thing to go back and look at. Like, hey, these are what the different symbols are, and this is what you do with each of those symbols.
Hmm.
Keep going until you find the first truly secure rung on the ladder, and then go up from there. Don't worry about what grade it is. Don't worry about if they're where they're supposed to be. Find the foundation and build from a solid foundation. Don't build from the fourth floor because that's where you're supposed to build from.
Hmm. Yeah. I love that advice. And I just love the idea generally of working backwards in so many aspects of life, not just trying to go backwards until you have found the lowest secure rung on the ladder, but it works there as well. I mean, we joke all the time about doing backwards math about what time to leave the house. If we have to be here by then what time do we have to leave? And then what time that, and you go backwards until you figure out what time you have to wake up and all of those sorts of things. It's the same concept. And then at the same time that you're following Amanda's amazing advice, the rest of your kiddo's education can continue. So that targeted reading intervention or math intervention, whatever the case might be, is 20 to 30 minutes of their day. And the rest of their education continues at the appropriate level for each specific area with whatever accommodations need to be in place. It's the same with writing. If they need to work explicitly on sentence construction for 15 minutes, go for it. And then when they're doing history class, they can be working at the level that's appropriate for them for history class and have them dictate the response if writing the answer is going to be above where they're at right now or ahead of where they're at right now. And that's okay, but they can still get a really hardcore history lesson if that's what they're into or that's what they're ready for emotionally, intellectually, all of those things. Go for it. Rock that history class. I loved history. So, yeah, definitely. Yeah. So you can build that skill that's a little bit on the weaker side. Number one, while keeping their confidence intact. We talked about that, super duper important. But number two, not allowing that weak skill to become the gatekeeper for everything else. And just depending on what that skill is that's on the weaker side, you can bring in those supports and accommodations. It could be audiobooks, it could be speech to text, it could be typing, scribing, calculators. If you're on the math side, we've talked about giving your kiddos a printout of the multiplication table. Totally fine. Read alouds. There are so many different ways. And then as that gap closes, because it won't remain the same size, it'll slowly inch its way closed. The balance of accommodations versus skill work can slowly start to shift and can level out. But the whole time, keeping confidence intact is that big goal. Obviously, the goal is also to close the gap with regard to reading, writing, multiplication, whatever it is. And we're not advocating educational neglect, but kids who have struggled for years, especially if they were in the public school system and that frustration was building and mounting and manifesting in a way that you might not have seen every single day, then they need to experience competence again before we worry about how quickly the gap is closing, because that's going to be one of the foundational blocks to getting them where they need to be is that they feel like they can do it. Like anything else, if you feel like this is never going to happen, I'm never going to be able to do this, guess what? You're never going to be able to do it, or it's going to be a really hard journey to get there. So when you're building out that plan to close the gap, I wouldn't begin remediation at the very edge of their ability level. I would go back, like you said, to that really, really secure rung on the ladder so that they can experience this feeling of, oh, I can do this. I'm smart. I'm capable. I can do these things. And this feels good. And I would like to feel that again. And then you can gradually increase the difficulty so that the whole time you can be measuring progress against where they started, not the state standards or where the school told you they needed to be or where the curriculum says they should be. You can just work for your kiddo.
Well, yeah. And actually, this, I feel like I've said this a bunch this episode, but this comes up a lot in our coaching sessions as well, where sometimes with certain kids, it can actually be really, really beneficial to start out a skill or two behind what's really solid,
Mm,
something that's review, so that your kiddo is feeling really accomplished before getting to the new stuff that they actually need to learn. If they're doing it and it's easy and they're kind of flying through it and they're feeling good about themselves, it sets up a good pace, especially if you're starting with a new curriculum or something like that. It can just kind of set the tone on a more positive note than like, okay, we'll try this math problem. Oh, you didn't understand that. All right, then flip back one more chapter. Like, try this problem. Oh, you didn't understand that. All right, we'll go back one more chapter. That doesn't feel good to anyone. This is not rocket
that's
science,
awful.
right? So be a little bit of a detective, figure out where you know they've got it, figure out a skill you know they've really got, and start there and let them feel good about the fact that, like, oh yeah, I know this. I can do this chapter. I can do this unit, and then move on from there, build from there. The other thing that you can and really probably should in most cases do is make the improvements visible. Say it out loud. 6 weeks ago, you needed help decoding these words and you've got them now. Isn't that amazing? Or look
Hmm.
how much faster multiplication is getting. Now, listen, there are certain kids who are not going to respond to that, and that's okay, but they still need it. Even those kids that don't respond well to hearing that from their parent or their homeschool grown up, they
Hmm.
still need it. So this is one of those cases where maybe you say it when they're generally in the room and they're kind of eavesdropping, and you say it to your parenting partner, or you say it to your mom on the phone, like, oh, little Johnny is doing so well. He's been really working on this thing and he's totally picked it up. It's only taken him a few weeks to get this whole new skill. It's amazing. You're not saying it to them, and they still get that boost without that one-on-one that can make some kids really uncomfortable. So just keep in mind, this depends on your kiddo and their personality and how they accept praise. And there's a whole lot of things that are wrapped up in that. But
Hmm.
most humans like feeling successful, and they like to have their successes acknowledged, whether it makes them uncomfortable or not. And that feeling is very likely to create willingness to practice, and then practice just creates more success.
Hmm. Yeah. I've talked before on the show that my youngest kiddo has a service dog. And even they like they need to feel smart and successful. They need that validation of feeling like they've succeeded. I was saying I was working on the 9/11 unit study last night, and spoiler alert, there's a video in there about the dogs that were working at the trade center, and they were struggling psychologically, the dogs were, because they weren't finding anyone alive, and they had to bring in help for the dogs to keep them help. Even dogs, they want to feel successful and they want to feel needed and all of that. So your human child definitely does. Okay, the other thing I'll toss out there as the hippie unschooler among us, and we'll see how much of this Amanda is down with, if any, is maybe take a little bit of time to decide which gaps actually need filling. I had a pretty cookie cutter, one size fits all type of education. I think most adults did. If you went through a traditional school system, I didn't go to public school, but it was still a traditional learning model. It certainly wasn't a hippie Montessori high school or anything like that. And there were absolutely subjects that I muddled through, or if we're being completely honest, in some cases cheated my way through. And I was just glad to have them behind me when I was done with them. And those subjects are absolutely still gaps. Okay. Those are subjects that I am paying people to teach my kids because I am not doing it. I didn't want to learn it then and I don't want to learn it now. So the things that I absolutely sucked at aren't things that I'm going to gravitate towards in my adult life. I'm never going to go get a job as a chemist or anywhere close to even the chemistry field. It's just not going to happen. Now, I am not suggesting that this applies to all of math. If your kid can't do math, like just toss all of math. There are essential math skills that your kiddo is going to need. Literacy is important. We have a literacy crisis in this country. Important, okay? But if your kiddo's gap is something really niche and really specific, like trigonometry, I'd be okay with covering the basics of trigonometry and moving on with life if you don't have a mathy kiddo. If you have a mathy kiddo where trigonometry is going to be needed to build, yeah, you need to figure it out. You need to figure out how to explain it a different way, hire a tutor, switch curriculum, whatever, because that kid's going to need trigonometry. But if you have a kid who's in no way, shape, or form going in that direction, I can count on 0 fingers how many times I've used trigonometry in my adult life. There are other things. Algebra I used, geometry I used. Trigonometry was not one of them. So I would suggest asking some questions like, is this thing that they're struggling with foundational to future learning? If it's literacy, algebra, things like that, yeah, they are. They're totally foundational to life skills, future learning. But there was nothing in my higher education path that was going to require trigonometry because I hated the whole field of study. When I got to a place where I was allowed to choose a major, was that what I was going to choose? Hell no. Other questions like, is this a skill that's necessary for their independence? Yes, you have to pay taxes. You have to be able to keep your checking account in the black. These are important skills. So if it's stuff like that, yeah, then they're going to need those skills. Is it something that is related to your kiddo's future career path? If they want to do something that's in the STEM world and they're really, really struggling with one aspect of science or math or something like that, you're probably gonna have to figure that out because it's a cog in a bigger machine and it's the direction that they're going. So if it's likely to create barriers for them, if that gap continues to exist, then yes. But if it's something where it's like, well, I'm feeling the need to teach this because this is typically taught at a particular age and I'm losing my mind because they don't know it, but it's not creating future roadblocks, future gaps, things like that, I would maybe cover it just with the basics or circle back to it later when they actually need it. And then maybe there's a need for it. So I would feel out the situation too and how essential is this thing that they're really struggling with? Can they get by with a band aid on one specific thing? And then take whatever time that you would have spent banging your head against the wall teaching them something like that and put it into a different area where they are excelling. And it's probably a skill that they will use in life a whole lot more. So I'm going to guess Amanda doesn't love that idea, but take it for what it's worth.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely differ a little bit on this one. I will say your approach is incredibly common in the homeschool community. There are a lot of people who think and feel that way. On the flip side, there are a lot of people who think and feel my way as well. I feel like people are generally living so long now, and young adults, they have no way of knowing what they're going to be doing in 10 years, let alone 25 or 40 years. Careers need to just last so long. And also, I'm a multi-potentialite. My kiddo is a multi-potentialite. So we come at this from a little bit different angle. I'm pro covering all of the typical high school subjects and then some. I don't think they need to get A's in all of them, but I just think give them a solid understanding, give all of those subject areas a solid effort to open as many doors to success as possible in a world where success, heck, even survival is getting just inappropriately difficult. But
Mhm.
that's taken a really dark turn. So let's get back to knowledge gap. Okay, so let us leave you with a few actionable steps today. Let's say you discover a Grand Canyon sized learning gap tomorrow. You're sitting at breakfast, your kiddo says something, and you're like, holy fuck me, what? Here are the steps we'd love you to remember. Number one, don't catastrophize in front of the child. Megan, I'm looking at you.
Guilty. I have an arrangement with one of my kids where they start out with promise me you won't freak out. And that way I have a minute to brace myself and try really, really hard to keep the freak out off my face
To
and out of
fix
my
your
body
face
language.
and be as
Yeah,
neutral
you
as
know?
possible as they share the next thing. I mean,
Yeah,
sometimes that's what you need.
it's working. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. If it works, you find the things that work. Okay, number two, don't announce, oh my God, you're 4 years behind. How are we ever going to get this fixed? What are we ever going to do to get you caught up? That's also not helpful. Maybe not quite as bad as catastrophizing, but also very not helpful. Okay, keep it inside. Maybe melt down to your husband later on or whoever your parenting partner is. In my house, it would be my husband who's trying to go to bed. And I'm like, I need you to listen to me. I'm freaking out about something with our child. Thank you. Anyway, number 3, get curious about why. Again, you need to be an investigator for yourself, not out loud with your kiddo. Is the issue inadequate instruction? Is it inappropriate curriculum? It might not even be inappropriate curriculum, just a mismatch. Maybe it just
Hmm.
doesn't work for your kiddo.
Hmm.
Is it a learning disability? Is it something that maybe you need to go get an assessment for so you know whether or not it's an actual learning disability or just something else, right? Is it inconsistent attendance for any number of reasons? Is it school avoidance, a lack of curiosity, a general distaste for learning because of past trauma that needs to be dealt with? Is it that you had intervention that wasn't effective and you need to retool and figure something else out? These are all things that you need to really get curious about so that you can figure out your next steps. Then 4 is consider whether professional assessment and or support would help identify the actual issue. We talked earlier in the episode that might not be necessary, but in some cases it is, and that's okay. Getting help is never a bad idea.
Mm-mm.
Number 5, pick 1 or 2 priority areas. Do not try to tackle everything simultaneously. No one wants to feel like a money pit fixer upper, including your kiddo. Okay. Number 6, set a sustainable intervention rhythm. It is not a race. You are making progress. You are making forward progress. The reality is that forward progress is often going to look like 1 step back and 2 steps forward, and that's okay. We're not trying to sprint a marathon. We're trying to fill a gap. Number 7, breathe and settle in because filling gaps often takes time. It just does. It wouldn't be a gap if it was something that they could quickly, easily pick up and it was just there and it was a thing. You wouldn't be freaking out about it if it was something that in an afternoon you could sit down and be like, oh, hey, guess what? There's this thing.
Hmm.
It's going to take time, but it'll be okay.
Hmm.
And number 8, continue moving forward with a rich educational experience and proper supports in all of the areas. Just because your kiddo is behind in one area, do not make that everything your homeschool is about. Make sure you're doing lots of other amazing, fun things and supporting them and encouraging them and working on some things where you need to. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, I love all of that. Even if today's episode does lend itself to me being the poster child for freaking the hell out. But hey, we said at the beginning of the episode, we're real, okay? We do not hide the messy bits. So yeah, if you're breathing into a brown paper bag, just know that I will be right alongside you in spirit. So yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing too I would add maybe is that keeping in mind that the finish line doesn't have to be, and I would say shouldn't be, will my child be performing like an average fifth grader in May at the end of the school year, quote unquote, the traditional school year? Who cares? Doesn't matter. Better questions in my mind are things like, are they making meaningful progress? Is the skill becoming easier? Are they becoming more independent? Are they becoming more confident with that thing? Do they understand themselves better as a learner based upon how progress is occurring and what's been successful for them? Do we know from seeing the progress, and in some cases not seeing the progress, what supports work and don't work, right? Which ones have we completely crossed off the list and which ones are working and we're going to lean into a little bit more? So much of this is what I was working on today for the cohort document. So I feel like I'm channeling the same energy all day long. I like it. But at the end of the day, and again, if you're spiraling, it's really hard to think about it so logically, but who gives a shit if the Grand Canyon sized gap is filled by the end of the school year? Sometimes it can take 3 months, sometimes it can take 3 years. Your kiddo may go to college needing accommodation in the thing that you're trying to fill a gap on right now. And that is okay. That is 100% okay.
Yeah.
You're doing a great job.
No, that's it. It is absolutely fine. There will be kiddos who go from brick and mortar school into college that need accommodations for those things.
Yeah.
Like, don't
Hmm.
hold yourself to a different standard. We've talked about that in so many other episodes that as homeschool grown-ups, we hold ourselves to a standard that is so much more higher, better, intense, unrealistic. It's not necessary. If you discover a Grand Canyon sized gap tomorrow, you don't need to lower the ceiling. You need to build the missing stairs. That's okay. So, with that,
Mm-hmm.
we will leave you with our mantra for the week. Although I got to say, the missing stairs tidbit of mine, that's pretty mantra esque. But anyway, still, we'll make it official. Put it on a post it note on your bathroom mirror or on your computer. If you're feeling a bit extra, feel free to tattoo it on the inside of your eyelids. If knowledge gaps have you staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., worried about whether or not your kiddo will ever succeed, and if you've messed up this whole thing because you should have seen it sooner, please don't live in a world of shoulds. It's totally not worth it. Your mantra for this week: a gap in learning is not a measure of intelligence, potential, or worth. It is simply information about what to teach next.
Hmm. So you're doing awesome. It's going to be amazing. Have an awesome rest of your day and happy homeschooling.
Yeah, have a great one.